I can guarantee that the face you picture when I say Asian person looks something like this. The monolid equals Asian image in your head is a deliberately constructed lie that serves a specific purpose to make 4.7 billion people invisible by pretending only 1.5 billion of them count. And you've been doing the work of maintaining that lie for free. Every single time you see someone from Iran or Turkey and think that's not what Asian looks like. And yes, look at these characters. Monolid eyes, every single one has them. I'm also part of the problem, but we'll get to that. When I show you these faces with no names, no context, and say they're all Asian, you will hesitate. After all, these people don't look Asian. They look Middle Eastern, Mediterranean, or Arab, maybe vaguely European, depending on your personal geography levels. Egypt touches Asia across the Sinai Peninsula. Turkey sits on 2 continents, but the vast majority of its landmass is firmly planted in Asia. Lebanon, Iran, Iraq, all of them are geographically Asian because that's literally what the map says when you look at it without the cultural baggage we've been trained to carry. If you can call an avocado toast a meal, you can call Iranians Asian. So if they're Asian by geography, why doesn't your brain cooperate when I say the word? Because you've been taught that Asian means one face. Monolid eyes, straight black hair, yellow skin that burns if you look at the sun too hard, maybe some chopstick proficiency thrown in for flavor. You picture Japan, Korea, or China, the holy trinity of what the superior nations decided counts as Asian, even though that's less than a third of the continent and an even smaller fraction of the faces that actually live there. And sadly, by addressing only Kung Fu, Taekwondo, and Karate as Asian makes you look even more miserable at geography than you actually are. This isn't your fault. You didn't wake up one day and decide Asians look a certain way. You were taught that very carefully and consistently through every movie you've ever watched, where that one Asian character showed up with the same visual cues, through every TV show that needed ethnic flavor but didn't want to work too hard for it. The lie you learned didn't appear out of nowhere. It has an origin story, and like most origin stories that involve categorizing human beings, it's not pretty. It involves bureaucracy, pseudoscience, and the kind of casual racism that gets baked into systems so thoroughly that we mistake it for objective truth.
No to racism.
Non au racisme.
No al racismo.
Understanding why your mental image of Asian is so narrow requires understanding who profited from keeping it that way. Post-World War II, America is dealing with immigration waves from China, Japan, and Korea. These become the faces white Americans associate with the word Asian. It's not like those were the only Asians who existed at that time, but those Asians were who the government decided to let in. Immigration law has always functioned as a gatekeeper for who gets to be what in America, and the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952 essentially said, we'll allow some Asians now, but we're going to need to categorize you so we can manage you appropriately. That box was labeled Asian. It included East Asians, sure, but some Southeast Asians got squeezed in later. South Asians eventually made the cut, though people argued about that for decades. But Middle Easterners? Central Asians, the people from the massive chunk of the continent that includes everything from Turkey to Afghanistan, they got categorized as white on the census. The system simply didn't know what else to do with them. Brown, but not black. Foreign, but not Asian. Threatening, but not in the same way as the Cold War enemies. So they became statistically white. You could also say they were bureaucratically invisible. Hollywood loved this arrangement. When they needed an Asian character, you just cast someone East Asian. Boom, representation achieved. Everyone can pat themselves on the back. Do you need an evil man or an oil sheikh or a mysterious ancient desert wizard? That's not Asian, that's Middle Eastern. Totally different box. Don't worry about it. The fact that both boxes are on the same continent didn't matter because the goal was never accuracy. The goal was simplicity for white households, and it worked wonderfully. There are people right now who will argue with faith. No, they're Middle Eastern. As if Middle Eastern is a continent. As if West Asia stopped being Asia because someone in a British colonial office in 1902 needed a catchy name for that area east of us, but not too east. It's wild how a term coined by men in waistcoats arguing over tea now defines how billions of people identify. Besides, the term Middle East isn't even that old. It's a European invention from the age of empires, when white people were drawing lines on maps and naming things based on how far they'd have to sail to get there. Near East, Middle East, Far East, all relative to Europe. As if Europe is the center of the world, and everything else is just degrees of distant. And we still use it. We still let a dead British guy's navigation system define how we see an entire region, and by extension, who gets to be Asian. That's colonial baggage we're still carrying around like it's a normal way to organize the world. You're still watching because part of you knows I'm right, but you haven't quite connected all the dots yet. Let me work on that.
Mày coi chừng mày chết với tao rồi mày.
Well, Asia is home to 4.7 billion people. That's 60% of everyone on Earth. And those people don't look like each other. Because why would they? You've got Turks who could pass for Italian, depending on the neighborhood. You've got Afghans with green eyes and red hair. You've got Iranians who are pale, Yemenis who are dark-skinned, Kazakhs who look more Mongolian than anything else because, surprise, Central Asia has been a genetic blender for thousands of years. Genghis Khan really said, I'm going to make sure nobody can draw clean racial lines on a map, and then followed through. You've got your East Asians too, obviously. The ones that load automatically when someone says the word. Japanese, Chinese, Korean. But even there, even within East Asia, the monolid thing isn't universal. Plenty of people in China don't have them. Plenty of Japanese people don't match the anime character. The diversity within East Asia alone is more than most people are willing to acknowledge, but we flattened it anyway, because one face is easier to market than 50. Southeast Asia multiplies that diversity exponentially. South Asia takes it even further. When you're talking about Indians or Sri Lankans, you're describing over 1 billion people with more genetic and physical variety than entire continents. The span of skin tones and features in South Asia alone could fill an anthropology textbook, but we keep trying to squeeze everyone into boxes that were designed by people who never left Europe. The West couldn't neatly categorize Asia because Asia has always been too complicated, too interconnected to fit the taxonomies that colonizers wanted to impose. The Silk Road was doing more than just moving goods. From kebabs to kimchi, from Bollywood to Kazakh throat singing, it was leading diversity. Asia has been blending and reblending for thousands of years, which makes the whole project of creating a singular Asian look inaccurate and deliberately ignorant. When categorization through phenotype didn't work, the strategy shifted, then entered the concept of ethnic minorities. Xinjiang makes up 17% of China's landmass, but calling the people there an ethnic minority makes them sound containable. It's more about narrative control than power. Label someone a minority, and suddenly they're easier to dismiss, easier to exclude from the dominant story, easier to govern. Same colonial playbook, just different players running the same tired play. Before you think this is just about American ignorance or Western media, let me complicate that for you.
Vô dân quá. Mày coi chừng mày chết với tao rồi mày.
Even within Asia, this distorted map exists. Ask a Japanese person if they consider Iranians Asian, and watch them hesitate. Ask an Indian if Turkey feels like part of Asia, and you'll get that same pause, that same mental recollaboration, where they're trying to reconcile what they've been taught with what the geography actually says. We internalized the colonizer's map so deeply that the colonized are now using it to gatekeep each other. And yes, I'm part of the problem. Rice Degree uses characters with monolid eyes, because that's what registers as Asian in our brains. But I also know that if I put a Turkish character or an Iranian character on the thumbnail, half of you would scroll past thinking it's not actually about Asia. But also, it's easier to just switch the flags on them. The word Asian means different things depending on where you're standing. In the UK, Asian predominantly refers to South Asians. In America, it almost exclusively means East Asian. In Australia, the term often skews towards Southeast Asian. Those are multiple incompatible definitions, all of them missing the fundamental point that Asia is not a monolith and was never supposed to be. So, with all these, you'd think the one thing Asians could agree on is that Asia is magnificently diverse, right? Well, prepare to be disappointed. It turns out that even Asians have a definition of who deserves to be called Asian. Racial borders within this continent deserves its own uncomfortable spotlight. You can watch this video where I took a deeper dive into the topic. The Uyghurs in Xinjiang, ethnically Turkic, culturally Central Asian, live on 17% of Chinese land, but get labeled ethnic minorities because political systems thrive on division. A divided population is an easier population to govern. You don't have to convince people they're different. You just have to label them differently and let the divisions do the work for you. In 2019, Rami Malek won Best Actor at the Oscars. Egyptian parents, born in LA, playing Freddie Mercury, who was born in Zanzibar to Parsi Indian parents. That's Asia inside Africa, performed by an American, and half the internet didn't know what to call him. Is he Middle Eastern or white African? None of the boxes fit comfortably, because the boxes were never designed to fit him. When someone says Asian, your brain needs to stop auto-loading one image. It needs to load a question. Which Asia? There are 4.7 billion answers, spread across 48 countries, speaking hundreds of languages, practicing dozens of religions. To find more about these answers, you can watch these videos right here.
Mày coi chừng mày chết với tao rồi mày.